Hey, hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm your moderator for today's webcast, Mark O'Brien, Director at CM First. Thanks very much to CA, a Broadcom company, for hosting today's webinar featuring CA2E and CA Plex roadmaps, followed by several lightning talks, including security and web services. First, I've got a poll question. We'll run through the introductions here. We're going to have several today. My first question for you is, which platforms are you hosting production web services on? You may multiple select. Organizers and panelists can't vote. Your options are IBM I, Windows Server, Linux, other, or we're not using web services. So today's webcast is going to cover some important topics. TUI and Plex latest roadmaps, including a TUI release in the near future, also updates on feature sets, and then a security and two different web services lightning talks. Broadcom has undergone a conversion of multiple customer systems, and if you contacted Broadcom and you're not getting answers quickly, just let me know. We are reseller partners, and I'll work with you to get to the bottom of the issue. I'm already assisting a couple of other companies. We've been working all the summer, and we're starting to get some real results instead of delays. So also regarding today's speakers, please remember to place your questions into the console on the dashboard, as we'll use them in the Q&A session. I'm going to close this poll out in about 5 seconds. So please vote if you already have not. Okay, can we see the results of the polls? So multiple answers are allowed, so it's going to be greater than 100. So only 1 in 5 are not using web services. So for the other 80%, looks like IBM I and Windows Server. IBM has a slight edge, about the same as Windows and Linux together. And looks like a couple of respondents said that they have other. So thank you for that. I'll now introduce you to Diraj Prasad, who's going to talk about the latest evolving roadmaps for our premier products, CA2E and Plex. And so take it away, Diraj.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks again, Mark. So I'll get started. What I'm going to cover is the roadmaps for both Plex and TUI, and what we've been doing in recent times, and a few updates that I would like to cover. Before I get started, a quick refresher on our legal slide, that what you're going to see today is valid as of today, and things might change because we follow agile methodologies at Broadcom, and development, release, and timing of these features described in this presentation are going to be at the sole discretion of Broadcom. If you have any discussion that you want to have from a timeline perspective, I encourage you to reach out to me in person so that we can have those discussions. With that, I think we can get started. Can you move on? Yeah. So I know some of you might have seen these slides at the conference at Fort Lauderdale, but I thought this is a good refresher again to tell what Broadcom is all about, what we do, what Broadcom cares for, and how over the years it's a combination and heritage of technology that has come together, with the latest edition being Semantic on the enterprise software side of the house in 2019, the latest acquisition. And if we can move on, Mark. Can we move to the next slide? Yeah, thank you. Or if you can grant me control, I can manage the slides if that works. And while you do that, I'll continue to speak. So as you can see on the slide, with the amalgamation of different technologies and the heritage of technology that Broadcom has, the net revenues for last year has been close to 20 billion. And most important of all on this slide, the highlight metric that I like the most is the fact that close to 20% of that goes into an investment in R&D, and that is best in class from any of the technology companies out there. If we can go to the next slide, Mark. And while that investment in R&D is happening, these are the top things that Broadcom cares about. first and foremost to be provide best-in-class technology by being leaders in the markets we serve in, rapidly delivering on customer commitments and value, and providing business impact to our customers. And of course, with the PLA or the portfolio license agreement models, building durable customer relationship is really important for Broadcom. And of course, a focus on simple and straightforward contracts to ensure that the portfolio license agreement comes into picture, wherein the plethora of options from Broadcom are available to our customers via the Play Store. Can we go to the next slide, Mark?
Yeah, Diraj, I wanted to say that only a minority of people actually have been in the conference that are registered for today. So we have the bulk of people this is news looking at Broadcom strategy and so forth.
That's good to know. Yeah, that's why I brought them over. I didn't start directly from the roadmap.
Yes.
So when I had posted when I took over as the product manager for Plex and 2E that, when the acquisition happened, Broadcom, the CA was traditionally divided into two broader divisions, one being the enterprise software division and the other being the mainframe division. And these two products traditionally, Plex and 2E, were on the mainframe side of the house and moved over to the enterprise software division. And what you see on this slide is all the businesses that are segmented across the enterprise software division. So I'm not going to focus on the mainframe division, but more towards the enterprise software division from here on. And what you see are the core capabilities or the major platforms that we have in the enterprise software division, starting from business management that caters to plan, track, and manage, agile management that focuses on our core product called Rally or Agile Central, and continuous delivery and testing, our BlazeMeter platform, the monitoring suite of products under AI Ops suite of products, and then the security and integration platform with strengthened with Layer 7, and of course the delivery and automation piece coming with Atomic. And if we can go to the next slide, I'll show you where Plex and 2E fit into the broader ecosystem. Under the business management platform, where we have products like Clarity PPM, Service Desk, we also see products Plex, 2E, and Harvest coming in. Harvest being one of the products that I manage, coming in on the business management side of the house under the enterprise software division. With that context, I think I'm good to move on to the details of what we can look on the roadmap if we go into the next slide. And before we get there, what's really important for us on Plex and 2E, these are the top 3 pillars that we consider when we drive anything on our roadmap or whatever we do day in and day out as teams on Plex and 2E. Number one, the most important thing for us is supporting our existing customers by ensuring that, although we follow agile methodology, what that means is we plan, and we plan with a caveat that we know that plan might change. And that again brings back to the priorities that you're seeing here. And the first and most important priority for us is supporting our customers and ensuring that fixing their defects comes first for us. Second of all, we focus on certifications to ensure business continuity to our customers, and that you would see on the roadmap as well. That once we have the defects and the defects backlog under control, the next important thing is to ensure tech currency updates. And then we look to invent and improve the product by adding incremental enhancements. So what you see on the roadmap is I'm sure nothing new, but then a reaffirmation of the fact that we are looking to do incremental enhancements to these products. We are not looking to do anything big bang, but that doesn't mean we'll not look to invent. So these are the top 3 priorities on these on the 2 products that I'm talking about today, and in that order: to support, certify, and then look to invent. I think we can go on to the next slide, Mark. And before I jump onto the Plex roadmap, I have a poll question. And before that question comes up, precursor to how this question is coming up today. So while we were at Fort Lauderdale, we did an exercise called the $100 bill to get feedback from our customer base to understand that what they would like us to build in our under consideration bucket on our roadmap, because we have 3 swim lanes as we go onto the roadmap. You would see the leftmost being the released, center one being what we're working on, and then the rightmost being under consideration. And this exercise was specifically to stack rank our under consideration bucket. And I would like to run a poll and then go on to the roadmap to check how it would differ between the audience today and the one that we saw at the conference. So we can launch the question now, Mark.
Great.
So pick the most important feature amongst what you see that you would like us to build next on CA Plex. Let's see if this matches with the list that we have or that we could get from the conference. Oh, so improved search ability in model editor and action diagram is the highest voted, followed by performance via visibility and support JSON format on WCF services. I think the results are slightly different, but we'll go there and check what's our under consideration looking like. If you go onto the slide now, Mark. So if you look at the under consideration bucket, and that actually fits exactly their improved searchability in model editor. So this audience is exactly in line with what we saw as results from the conference as well. So that reaffirms our $100 exercise that we did, especially on Plex. So thank you very much for that input. I'll not touch much upon on the leftmost section on this slide, which is the delivered section. We recently released it on 10th, not so recent, but then it's this year. On 10th of April, we released these set of enhancements just before we came to the conference. But most important of all, what I added right below there is the IBM i 7.4 certification for the latest supported release of Plex. We've just announced that. And what's planned and what we're doing right now is the center swim lane, which is slated to be out somewhere in first half of calendar year 2020. I don't have a specific timeline as yet, but we would be looking to have it released by first half of calendar year 2020. What you see as key enhancements there is type through list in object browser, so that it makes your job easier, where you can start searching and typing through your list so that you don't have to do search across all entities starting with E, but you could now do EMP and get to the employee record, for example. Navigate to precursor position, especially helpful when you're debugging long action diagrams. And all of these, in fact, the enhancements that you see here, whether it is model housekeeping, where we are looking to remove unused local fields so that you can have very clean model diagrams. All of these, are going back to the 3 priorities that I had and connecting it that, when we look to invent, we look to invent incrementally, and that's how you see the features laid out that we're working on right now. We're also looking at a freemium model for Plex that's still underway. We tested the waters at the conference, but we're still figuring out what would be the best approach to have that out. And that's the order in which that we would look at these enhancements. The under consideration bucket is solely driven by the $100 exercise that we did at the conference, and today it was a reaffirmation of the priority order that you set forth as well. And those are the things that we're looking to do. We're looking to improving the impact analyzer and also improving searchability in model editor and action diagrams so that life of a Plex developer is easier and simple. We're looking to do a bunch of usability improvements to the action diagram and also support JSON format on WCF services. And the ones as you keep going down become hazier because we're still figuring out how to get there. Of course, a common theme that you see across everywhere is customer reported defects, because as I said, for us, the priority is business continuity of our customers. And you'd see that bucket sitting everywhere across in everything we do. The link that I have, I would not ask you to click that, Mark, because I don't think you'll have access to. I just had that there because it just had results from the $100 exercise. So I think we can skip that.
Fair enough.
We can go on to the next poll for 2E. And that again is in similar lines with what we did at the conference, although the options were a lot more than the 3 options that you have on this slide. This is just to see if we are aligned with your topmost asks versus what we have on our roadmap. All right, string handling built-in functions for RPG4. That's the one that the audience thinks they want to see the most. So let's go to our roadmap slide and see where it stands. And that's in fact the first one, string handling routine. So there you go. So that's just a reaffirmation, right? That we did that exercise at the conference. We wanted to bring that flavor here today to check what the audience feel, and that also as an input for us to see that where are we headed. Although we are working on the plan section, but under consideration is important for us, and that's why these little feedback exercises that we as product team do with the user group. What's delivered on 8.7? Well, I understand it has been quite some time since we released something, but then good news, we're going to come out with a new release on 2E as well as announced at the conference, although you might see the dates have slightly moved, and that's because of some challenges that we're facing internally from a hardware and other challenges that we're facing from a hardware procurement perspective, but nothing to do with what we're doing on the product. As of now, we are hopeful that we'll have this release go out by Q1 2020. And key enhancements that you look to see there is, number one, the most important, where most of the focus has been, especially from an ask perspective from the customers, is RESTful enablement, so that it's easier to consume web services by having meaningful names in WSDL. And that's of top priority, and we understand that that's an ask from our customers. And of course, the other section that you see at the bottom, where we talk about improved SQL support by adding enhanced support for optimize for end rows and data access by file type. Well, this is something that we've got our hands around. We've completed it. It's in beta. It's in testing phase, not beta yet. We are also in touch with few of you to have the beta going on. And as I said, because there are some delays, that's why we haven't rolled out the beta plan yet. But you would expect to hear from us because our release is somewhere in Q1 2020. You would expect to hear from us early in Q1 on the beta program around the next release for 2E. A noteworthy, again, update here is that we've certified the latest release with IBM i 7.4. So that's the latest available hardware from IBM. So we have certified it. And under consideration, again, I'll touch quickly on those that we talked about, the string handling routines, web option for server enhancements, that is specifically from a scalability perspective, again, heavily improving the life of a 2E developer. So that's why looking to improve scalability of the product, improve century character handling, and comment handling and source code generation, again focused on the developer persona, to ensure that we make the lives of the developer easier. And of course, the last one there is better audit control on display model object screen, so that you have better auditing capabilities in the product. Again, a common theme that you see here is defects that are reported by our customers, and that take priority whenever we have a backlog that increases. We revisit our plan. We say that, okay, some of the enhancements have to go on the back burner, and we will focus our energies on ensuring that we provide continuity to our customers. This, again, some of you might have seen this. Important lifecycle dates, especially for these products. There are 2 active GA versions of the product right now, and the others are end of service already, or nearing end of service. I'm sorry, they're end of service already, and there are 2 active release versions that we're supporting. Most important of all, you might have seen that already on Plex, and you would see that on 2E, that we are moving away from the PTF model to a continuous delivery, where we are focusing on incremental releases to our customers, where we would like to give small little enhancements and customer reported defects, so that we can provide incremental value to our customers. And that's something that you would see, that you've already seen on Plex, you will see it on 2E as well. With that, I'm at the end of my presentation. If there are questions on the chatter, I can take them now, or I can take them at the end.
Great. We'll wait until the end.
Sure.
But it's a good reminder to our audience today. Please articulate your roadmap questions and put them right on the chat dashboard, and we'll take them at the end of the presentation. So now Arun Panuli.
Thank you, Mark.
Oh, you're very welcome, Daraj. Now Arun Panuli will present a lightning talk on Plex Java variant and encrypted password and properties files, and featuring a 2-part Java solution.
Yep. Yeah, thanks, Mark. And
you're welcome, Arun.
Yep. So good morning, good evening, everyone. So today's lightning talk is about, as we know, like in Java variant, we are storing the database password as a plain text, which is kind of like vulnerable actually. So anyone can read that file and they can take access to that particular database. So we have heard from many other users, which is like a compliance issue for everyone, because if those files are open, it is difficult to hide that particular details for the database password. So can you move to the next slide, please? So What we have done in past, like we have given some kind of workaround where customer or user has to encrypt the password and keep it inside the properties file, and then you have to write some kind of like external source code object within Plex, which is going to read that encrypted password and then decrypt it and then set that value in the runtime, which is kind of like a tedious job, and it doesn't work in all the scenarios like where user is calling the Java generated function from external application. In that case, they don't have much control over there. So with that, what we have done is like we have coded this solution as part of the Plex runtime, and there are two parts of this solution. So we don't have any external application as of today with the product which can go and update these properties in the Java properties file. So we have created one external application which is going to read that particular entry, and then it is going to encrypt your password, plain password, into encryption form, and then it is going to update back to the properties file. And the second part is like we have updated the Java runtime as well, like which is going to handle this encrypted password from the properties file and decrypt it within the runtime. So with that, it will be easy for user to put that encrypted password in the properties file, and this could be client or it can be server and it can be user properties file. So it is taking care for all those use cases. And the other one is like in some cases we are having a single database connection, but if a user is going to do with the multiple DB connections, even that is also taken care by this particular change. So next slide, please. Yes. So from I'll just go through this one, yeah, even though we have a demo at the end, but just high level, I'll go with this one. So this is external application we have created, where you see the first field in the this panel, it is having a plain text, and then you just click on this encrypted password and it will encrypt in the second field in the panel as it is showing. And then we have to give the properties file name, and then because it might be anywhere in your machine as you are deploying into end user machine actually. So with this one, and the final one is like which particular key you are going to update, whether it is environment default password, or it could be like in multiple DB connection, it could be anything else actually. Environment.default, then it will be a logical name of that particular connection and all that. So user has to key these things and then just finally click on the update Java property file, and it is going to update your property file with the updated encrypted password. So this is what from the external application, and we have built this application out within the Plex itself, so that you don't need any external dependency. Just it will use the obrun.jar file to update all those details within the properties file. Yeah, next slide, please. And from Java runtime side, we have because there could be chances like it's using the plain password, it's not updated yet with the encryption. So what we have given is like by default this it will be accepting this plain password only. So we have to update this key value pair within your properties file. Either it is a client or it is a ob server dot properties file. So just we need to update this one, environment.default.secure pwd equal to yes. So by default it is no. If it is yes, it is it assumes like you have encrypted password in your properties file and do the rest of the operation. It will decrypt and set up the runtime with the decrypted password. So with this we are done. So we'll go with demo. So I'll be showing that first part, what we have created as external application, and this is the external application which we will be going to bundle with the down the line with the PTF build, or maybe in next release. So it will be part of that installer. And here, if you see, like I need to just put my password over here. Suppose this is the plain text password, and then I just put it as encrypted. It got encrypted, and then I need to select which file I'm going to update. So suppose I'm interested within observer.properties file. I'll just copy the full path of that properties file, and this is going to be like which particular key value pair you are going to update. So by default, what happens here is like you are having this environment.default.password equal to anything you can have here. Actually, it will be, as of today, it is a plain text password. For example, this is like this. And if I just say update Java properties file, it is going to update over here. So you see like it has updated as a encrypted password over here. And now with this, if I go and try to connect with my client to the database, so in that case, first thing I need to do, like second part of this Java runtime changes, like we need to update this property value over here. It should be yes, then only it is going to decrypt. It will assume like you have an encrypted password within the properties file. So with this, if you set it yes and you have encrypted password within this properties file, we are good. And just what I can do is I have one client application created which has the current operations over here. So I'll just run it over here. So if you see like it got connected to the database actually. So it is going, taking that encrypted password, and within the runtime it is decrypting it and then passing that value over a database connection, which is going to, that's why it is working. So maybe if I put something different over here, it is going to cry for that one and it will say like the database login failed. So maybe if I put something over here which is not exactly the encrypted one. So it failed actually to connect to the database, which is like if you see this call stack trace, it is going to say like it failed with the login failed with user SA. So this is how it is going to work. So if I make it correct, so if this is the correct one, and then it is going to update properly. I'll just run it once more because we have now corrected the decrypted password. So now it is connecting back to the database because we have corrected encrypted password within the properties file. So from the properties file perspective, if you see like we are having the same configuration over here, you need to just put that particular flag on if you are directly connecting from the client to the database without a dispatcher in between. And then if you are connecting within with the help of dispatcher, like you have a server function, so in that case you need to update the server properties file. And if you have multiple DB connection as well, so you need to put something like, so I just tested with that part as well. So you have multiple DB connections, so where you have one of the connection name is available, one is like selected, so you just need to update everything over here. So in this case we need to keep the properties name differently because this will be the different key value you are going to update. So if everything is updated properly, it will be connecting with the encrypted password from the properties file. So I think this is going to quite helpful for the user because there are a couple of compliances issues where they are going to face, like because we are just saving the plain text password within the file. So with this, I think I'm done from my end. Maybe if there is any question, I can take it now or maybe at the end of presentation.
Yeah, we'll hold the questions for the end of the
Sure.
presentations. Arun, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Lightning. We're next up on the lightning talk round is going to be Mark Schroeder, talking about TUI web services and some innovation in that area.
Hey, hello, this is Mark. Let's see, I need to get the control. Okay. So I think you can all see my screen now. So I'm going to be talking about IBM I web services and the promotion process. There are three primary ways that we see promotion taking place. One is we have manual IBM I shell scripts that occur. The second way is we have an IBMI deployment wizard. And third, there's automated processes. 2E has a process where it can do some deployment. And we also have a tool that we are working on that also does the automated deployment. So today, though, I'm going to be talking about the IBMI wizard. I'm going to give you a demonstration on how that works. And then I'm also going to be going through what an automated deployment can look like. So with the IBMI wizard, there's basically 9 steps that you go through every time you deploy a web service. You have to select the web server. You have to either select deploy or redeploy, depending on which you're doing. And you enter the service name and the service description. You have the input and output parameters. You have to enter or follow up with the user ID that's going to be running the web service. And then you have the library list that has to be correct. Then you have transport metadata that is included and WSDL options. So those are the basic pieces of information you put, and then you have finally a finish button that you select. So this is the wizard that IBM has created to make it easy to deploy web services. And it's actually pretty easy. It looks like a lot of steps, and but the nice thing is they're pretty easy to complete. So what I want to do now is I'm actually going to show you the process so that you can see what happens. First, we have our model. So I'm going to go to a web service section in my model, and I'm going to go look for a service that's get a person. So what I need to do when I deploy my service, I need to go to my service program, and I need to get what the name of the service program is. So in this, there's my service program name. Then I'm going to go to my wizard, and this is the web server that I'm going to be deploying to. I need to go and manage my deployed services, and since I've been sitting here for a while, it has to refresh. So here it's refreshing for me. Now I'm going to click that again so that I can get back into there. And now what I can do is I can click on the deploy button. And I'm going to deploy a SOAP service today. They're a little bit easier than the rest. And I'm going to put in my object name. And then I need to go and get my library. So I'm going to I'm just deploying out of my Gen library today, so it's pretty simple there. So now I have my library name, my object name, and this is a service program. Now for the service name, I need to have it be something that has no spaces in it. So I'm going to say like get _a _person. So if I had spaces between those words, then it would complain about that. For my service description, I can have it be anything I want. So I'm just going to say get a person, and I do have spaces here, and so I just wanted to show you the difference between those two. So this is step 3 of 9 that we're following. So now we're going to go on to step 4. In step 4, what I need to do is I need to say what my parameters are. So here, I already know just from experience that this is my return code. So I'm going to set that as an output. This one right here, I know just from using this one that that one is my input that I'm going to be sending in to get my person. And my parameter 3, I know that's my output. That's going to be what is coming back from my web service. So I just set the usages on each of my parameters, and then I'm going to go ahead and click next and go on to the next step. Here what I get to do is I get to determine what user ID I'm going to use. I could use the standard server ID that is attached to this web server, or I could specify, say, my ID or some other ID that I knew would work, or I can use an authenticated user. This is a newer option that allows a little bit more capability. So, but usually I use the server ID in this case. And so now I'm going to click Next. And here, what I need to do is specify the library list that is needed to run my web service. In this case, I'm just including the Gen library. My user ID, I already have associated the Y libraries, so I don't have to attach them to my library list because they're already on my job description. But if I didn't have that taken care of, I may have to actually add some of my runtime libraries into this. But for today, all I need to do is put in this one library. And now here we have where we are specifying metadata. You can actually specify metadata, and then you could retrieve the information, look at it. It's not real easy to look at in 2E without having a little bit of user code to grab this information. But if you have a need, you can specify some of this metadata that you return. Normally, in the services that I've produced, I haven't brought back any metadata. So you can just click Next. And here you have what kind of SOAP do I want? Do I want to use the older 1.1 or 1.2? I always like to use 1.2 because, you know, it's a newer version. And most of these other items you can leave as disabled. So if you have more complex needs, you may find that you have to work with these, but in all the services I have produced so far, I haven't really had to work on, you know, adjust these parameters. And then we click Next again. So now we're at step 9 of 9. And this just tells you what your service is, the description, the path, just information about what the service is that you're deploying. So then you just click the Finish button, and that will take you to a fully deployed. So now here we see we're getting a person, we are installing it, and shortly it will be ready to run. Okay. Did I click the delete button? No, there it is. Okay, get a person. So now we see that that is running. So I want to select the properties. I'm going to go and test this service real quick. So I'm just going to grab this URL right here. Oops. Sometimes it's a little tricky to grab that, but okay. And then I'm going to go and test it in SOAP UI. So I'm going to create a SOAP project. Okay, get a person, and I'm just going to click OK. And then I have my project here. Let's see. Okay, so I'm not sure why it's not showing up here. There it goes. Oh, I must have used the wrong one. Oh, there's list update. There's my get a person. It changed orders on me. So I'm going to just put my person ID in here. And so that way I can test. This is then the results of the service that I just deployed. So that's one method of deploying and testing a service. So now what we want to do is we want to talk about, you know, what is another way to do this? So we're working on a more automated process at CM First. We're using CM Matchpoint, which is already a tool that manages deployment of regular objects. either Plex or TUI. So what we do with that is we have a process where you will identify an environment. You're going to identify your input-output parameters, and you can attach meaningful names to those parameters. And then you select whether it's a SOAP or a REST a web service, and then you click the deploy button. So these first three items you do one time when you're setting up. When you set up your environments, you have to set up those only once. Then when you set up your parameters, you only set those when you check out your object the very first time. And then you identify if it's a SOAP or REST at one time, and then deploying happens by itself as you go forward. So here's a copy of what the screens will look like. You have a web service, whether it's a COBOL or RPG. You have to identify those object types. Then you will go and click on a SystemI import button. That will allow you to import your web service and any other objects that are associated with it, or any other objects you want in that project. They don't have to be specifically for that web service. And once that is created, then you're going to go ahead and click on the deploy button, and that is going to deploy your objects. It's going to move the objects to the next environment, so it's going to move them to the other library that they belong. And it's also going to do that process we just saw with the wizard. It's going to do that with the one click of your button. So that way you don't have to go through all those 9 steps every time you deploy a web service. The other thing this will do is you have a history button. So here's my deployment that was just promoted. I click on a history button, and then I can see the install date. I can see the change request. I can see a lot of information about that specific web service. And that's one of the issues that I've seen in different locations is we don't really have a good way to track the history of deployment of web services. So this provides that capability. So the primary features we're looking to include are the automated deployment, the deployment history, remote deployment, so you can deploy to your local server or to the remote production servers. You can deploy with other changes, so it doesn't have to be just the objects that are for that web service, but you can deploy anything for a project. We can have meaningful parameter names. And then this integrates with your DevOps process, because Matchpoint is a full DevOps process tool. Then you can deploy REST or SOAP. And when you do REST, you can do XML or JSON output. So those are the basic features that we're looking to include in this project. So, okay, so while the poll is going on, I will go ahead and change control.
Great. So in the meantime, we have another poll question. Question number 4 is, how are you managing your web service promotion and management? You can select from one of these 4 options. Are you automatically promoting using an ALM product? Are you automatically promoting using some homegrown scripts or another manual script technique? Are you promoting them manually? Or do you have another technique, or are not currently deploying? Okay, so the vast number of you are promoting manually, and no one's using homegrown scripts. Only a few are doing ALM, and actually probably not a big surprise there is that you're doing none or other. So that the goal here with Mark is trying to get the world to take another look at promoting web services on the IBMI with this very much more simple and straightforward technique that gives you better control and repeatability over the process. So we now have Andrew Leggett is going to give us another approach, which is looking at web services and mobile remote services, web services on CA Plex.
Okay, thanks, Mark. If you can make me presenter, 1 second. Okay, so you should be able to see my screen now. So hello everyone. So I'm Andrew Leggett from CM First, and I'm going to do a demo showing how to run a REST API against a sort of Plex application using that as a back end. So for the demo, I've just set up a very simple model, just a couple of entities that we're interested in. So I've got the application here, so it's 2 entities, are products and orders. So I can order a product and specify the quantity, etc. And in this case, for the demonstration, our products are robots, so selling those. And it's a very simple application, little bit of validation. So let's say I want to add add an order. I'm selecting R2D2, and I want to order, let's say, 1,000, and I only have 178 in stock. So simple validation here to make sure that I can only order what we have in stock. So let's say we've got this Plex application, everyone's happy with it, but in our scenario, the CEO wants to include the information about stock levels in a dashboard. So he's assigned this to a web developer who's never heard of Plex, but does know how to work with REST APIs. So to enable this, we have a tool called HSync, which is a CM First product. And very simply, what HSync does is it's a group model that you can inherit, and you'll inherit some functions that can extract information from the Plex model, and you can combine it with templates to produce an output file. So in this case, the output files that I'll be creating will be for a Java servlet. And a servlet is just a process that runs on a web server, takes a request, does something, and then sends back the response to whoever requested it. And in this case, the request is going to call a Plex function, and then from within Plex you have control. So I'm going to be skipping over a lot of the details here because I've only got a few minutes to sort of demonstrate this, but please reach out to me if you need to know more information. But essentially, for my order entity, I've set up my inheritance so that I can create and retrieve orders, and for my product, through inheritance, I get this retrieve function that I can call to retrieve information about my products. So just to demonstrate the API, I've got a tool called Postman, which is a nice tool to visualize what comes back from an API. And this is the request for products. So I have my server in here, and then this is the resource that I want to retrieve information about. So when I click on the send button, what that will do is it will call the servlet. It will call the appropriate retrieve function in Plex and format that response as JSON, and it's going to return all my products. So I'll just run that, and it comes back with a JSON array with all the data that I have in my database. So there's no limit on the number of records that can come back, unlike a block fetch. And another thing I can do with my API is I can do a post operation, which in REST terms is a create. And for that, I want to create a order, and I need some extra parameters to pass in. So I need to specify which product I want to order and the quantity. So when I do this, it's going to call the create function, and that's going to call up an insert row and add that record to my database. So if I go back into my function here, I refresh, I now have a new record here for my order. And additionally, because it's calling our Plex functions, it still has the same validation. So let's say I want to order 25,000 R2D2s. It comes back, it fails, and it returns a message coming from Plex explaining why I can't order 25,000. So that's the API. So then to use this from within a web application, I have a JavaScript application here. I'm using the XJS JavaScript framework, and this is how we define our data source. We call it a store, and I have the URL that you saw before, and this allows me to retrieve all my products into my JavaScript function, and then I'll be doing some charts based on this data. And this is the same approach that you would use for any REST API source, so it could apply to the 2E demonstration that Mark Schroeder just applied if he generated that as a REST API. So just to demonstrate this, I'll just switch to my function here, and here I've got my my chart here. So this is using the data from my database through Plex, and I can also add orders. So again, the product type is coming from my database. So if I want to order, well, let's make it one I can do, 10. Is that successful? And I refresh that, and it's done that through the API. And if I try to order ridiculous amount, it'll come back with that error message and report that to the user. So all this is done without any Plex knowledge from the JavaScript point of view. And just quickly to demonstrate the fact that the data is live, if I add a new robot, so just call it Bender from Futurama, just put some, so added a new robot here, and now I can see I have Bender in my web application. So yeah, that's the API over Plex. So we're getting near the end, so I'm going to hand it back to Mark.
Thanks very much, Andrew. Let's see, I'm gonna I'll go over, got a quick question for Mark Schroeder, which is there a way to set up friendly parameter names in the IBM I deployment tool?
In the actual deployment tool for IBM I right now, there's not a way to set up friendly parameter names. You have to basically go with the parameters that are defined within your RPG and RPG code. Yeah.
Okay. One for Andrew for HSync. Can you control which attributes are returned when requesting an entity?
Yes. Yeah. So when you inherit from the HSync group model, you also inherit a view called API retrieve attributes, I believe, and that's just a typical Plex view, and you can specify which attributes get included, and that'll include virtual and derived attributes as well if you want.
Okay, question here. At the end of this, can I have this documentation? And you can actually have it now by downloading from the handout section.
Yes.
I'll have to go to webinar and we'll also send out a copy. Okay, next question was, I guess, for Diraj. Can you tell me a date by which web option will be operational? Not sure what that means. You want to take a crack at that, Diraj?
Yeah, as I said, we don't have a specific date. What was that for exactly? I missed it.
Web option feature.
Okay, web option. Yeah. So as I said, right now we do not have dates because that's not part of the immediate term. Web options or enhancements are under consideration. So once we have the release go out in first half of our Q1 2020, we'll have that planned. As of now, it's not planned.
Okay. Question for Arun. Which algorithm is being used for the encryption piece?
Yeah. So we are using this cryptographic algorithms from Java itself, and then means what we are using is those SHA and all that. So I can comment on this one once we finalize the code, but some of the things will be picked up from the Java cryptographic algorithms. Yep.
Okay. And how will Broadcom be marketing Plex to new customers? It's the final one we'll have time for. Diraj?
What is the question, John? Is Broadcom prepared for?
Yeah, we're marketing Plex to new customers.
As I talked about this at the conference, I think it's a good thing to touch here as well before we close, that Broadcom doesn't believe in traditional marketing. We are certainly open for having new customers onboarded, but we do not believe in having the traditional marketing methodologies. We believe in ensuring that we provide the best of breed of products and softwares to our customers via the PLA model, and ensure we service those top customers. So the way CA operated versus the way Broadcom operates is slightly different, especially from a marketing perspective.
Okay, perfect. That's all we had, Mark.
Okay, great. Thank you, John. Thanks for picking that up. Hey, we're out of time. I've gone over by a minute, so I want to thank our panelists and speakers, Pradeep and Arun from Broadcom, and Mark Schroeder and Andrew from CM First. And thank you very much. And you'll have a link to the presentation here within a day or so, and we'll get that out to you. And I'd like to thank everybody, and also look forward to seeing you on our next webinar. Have a great day and a great week and a great fall season, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.